Amidst the vibrant evening at the cinema, Paul, the projectionist, starts the movie, then immerses himself in a book delving into enigmatic global mysteries. Among them is the tale of the vanished Roanoke Island colony, marked by the cryptic croatoan. Abruptly, a power outage engulfs the entire venue. Armed with his flashlight, Paul explores the eerie silence, a sole spectator amidst the abandoned attire-laden seats. As emergency lights flicker to life, he's startled to find himself alone. A chance encounter with a flashlight-wielding guard confirms they're the sole survivors. Yet, as the guard disappears, a shadowy figure advances, while Rosemary navigates a darkened hospital, searching for others. The dark, empty surroundings persist. In the operating room, Rosemary encounters a man left mid-surgery, seeking help. As emergency lights flicker and her flashlight drops, the man vanishes. She beckons for her absent son. The following day, Luke, a news anchor, finds his girlfriend absent. Unaware of lurking shadows, he continues his day despite a non-functional TV and phone, standing water, and a broken elevator. He ultimately comprehends that the newspapers are dated from the previous day. Stepping on discarded eyeglasses, Luke finally raises his gaze, unveiling a deserted city, littered with abandoned vehicles and strewn garments. A plane's abrupt crash signals the gravity of the situation. Desperation drives Luke to his workplace, blind to the shifting wall shadows. He scours every room, discovering vacant spaces and silent radios. In a drawer, he unearths a photograph of his ex-wife, just as he discerns the elusive shadows and gives chase. The picture drops, vanishing into the darkness. After 72 hours, Luke races through dim streets adorned with flashlights, having learned to repel the shadows. He hops between cars in vain attempts to find a functional one. Frustration mounts as he seeks refuge in a locked vehicle. A man taps the car window seeking a light. Luke declines and the man retreats, the light extinguished. Luke scavenges for supplies, unaware of Brianna watching. He finds an inactive truck, takes a gun, and hears music from a lit pub. Inside, he grabs batteries, sips a drink, and eyes his wedding ring as the lights flicker. Investigating the basement, he encounters a working generator, only to be confronted by James with a shotgun. James disarms Luke and, upstairs, fires a warning shot when Luke attempts to complete his beverage. Luke, sensing James isn't a killer, talks gently. They realize they've seen no one for days. James identifies Luke on television and reveals his mom worked at the pub, now missing. Estimating the generator's dwindling energy, Luke proclaims their joint departure from the city, but James, awaiting his mom, refuses. Luke points out the shrinking daylight, with the sun rising later and setting earlier each day. Luke informs James that his mother won't return, urging a departure before the generator fails. James, in disbelief, prompts Luke to leave alone. Meanwhile, Rosemary enters, continuously seeking her son. Amid her breakdown, she seizes Luke's firearm, firing a shot before collapsing. Nearby, Paul, with a head injury, manages to reach a bus stop with power. Later, Rosemary soothes, pondering the events from the night the lights went out, and a tragedy unfolded, causing the nanny and her son to vanish. Rosemary arrives, searching for her baby's father who used to frequent the pub. A distant commotion reveals Paul. Initially hesitant, Luke agrees to help when Rosemary and James insist. Armed with a flashlight, he rushes to Paul, unfazed by encroaching shadows. As he arrives at the bus stop, his light fails. To ward off the encroaching darkness, Luke ignites a sparkler and escorts Paul back to the bar. Simultaneously, James, believing he detects his mother's presence, attempts to leave but is halted by Rosemary. In the street, Luke stumbles, damaging his ankle, and the shadows close in. Luke helps Paul while Rosemary opens the door, repelling shadows and letting them inside. Inside, Luke tends to his injured leg, and Rosemary tends to Paul's head injury. Paul recounts his ordeal at the mall, where his light went out, and he was attacked by an unidentified entity. He thinks he was transported to another location and heard whispers. Luke doubts him, but Paul insists he fought to survive in the darkness. Rosemary speculates they were chosen for a reason, possibly a divine punishment. Frustrated, Luke questions this, and the lights flicker, revealing moving shadows. Paul urges them to disconnect machines to preserve the generator's power. Descending to the basement, they inspect the generator, where Luke uncovers a locked door. James clarifies it as an emergency exit. Feeling powerless, Paul strikes the generator, resulting in the lights flickering, casting eerie shadows. Luke intervenes, and once calm, Paul recounts the Roanoke Island lost colony tale, where 117 settlers mysteriously vanished in 1587. Croatoan marked a cryptic warning. Suddenly, Paul collapses in agony, so they transport him to the pool table where Rosemary tends to him. Fetching ice at the bar, Luke's despair overwhelms him, tears welling up as he gazes at his old wedding band, recalling the tragic day. While he pursued the shadow, the main stage lit up, reactivating the cameras and revealing his girlfriend's vanishing act. All the show recordings suffered the same fate, showing an enigmatic silhouette. He cautioned all to solely rely on lights within their grasp. As darkness fell, Luke discerned a voice amidst obscurity, pursued by silhouettes, until he reached a chamber, tearing apart the curtains to welcome daylight. In the current moment, Luke urges the group to depart before the generator malfunctions. He suggests the pub lights might lure them into the shadows. Rosemary contemplates embracing their fate, viewing the shadows as a path to reconnect with cherished family and friends. This sparks Luke's anger. He underscores the importance of utilizing the vehicle to locate a hospital for Paul, as well as to inquire about the whereabouts of Rosemary's child and James's mom. Amid flickering lights, Luke delivers an uplifting speech about starting anew. The team concurs to depart, with Luke and Rosemary fetching the truck while James tends to Paul. Before departing, Luke gifts James a keychain for luck. Meanwhile, Rosemary tends to Paul's injuries, and he admires her beauty, contemplating a future with someone like her. To console him, Rosemary shares a kiss with Paul. After their departure, the pub lights flicker. James watches over Paul, who rambles on various subjects. When Paul nods off, the lights once more experience a brief, intermittent dimming, prompting James to wake him. Paul yearns for music, persuading James to reconnect the jukebox. This strains the generator, causing persistent flickering lights. James envisions a bustling pub, spotting his mother at the bar. He suddenly comes to his senses when Paul cries out, rushing to soothe him before fetching water. During a brief power outage, Paul searches for James in vain and discovers the open emergency door to the basement. Concerned, Paul ventures inside. In a well-lit corridor, Paul hears James calling and searches for him. He reaches a door at the corridor's end, only to find a brick wall, frustrating him. Dim by dim, the illumination wanes as Paul makes his way towards the exit. The jukebox serenades, projecting a silhouette that engulfs Paul while he echoes, "I am present." Out of the blue, Paul remains atop the table just as the pub experiences a momentary blackout. When the lights return, James discovers Paul missing. In the pub, lights and shadows flicker, prompting James to inspect the generator in the basement. Meanwhile, Rosemary and Luke, struggling with a fading flashlight, push the truck toward the pub, pausing due to Luke's aching leg. While resting, Rosemary shares her son's early speech development, and Luke confides that his ex-wife is in Chicago, unsure if she'd welcome him. Luke's flashlight fails, but a new light source appears. Brianna, with her flashlight, attracting lurking shadows. They beckon Brianna, but she flees. Luke, pursuing her, stumbles due to his injured leg. Rosemary saves him by using the car's headlights to repel the shadows. However, the truck's lights waver, revealing strange, fog-bound figures. Luke improvises a torch from car parts, cursing the forgotten lighter. In a sudden move, Rosemary extinguishes the truck's lights and dashes, pulling Luke to a medical facility. Finding the door locked, Luke fires at the lock to gain access. Confessing she wasn't an employee there, Rosemary swiftly obtains matches to ignite a torch. As Luke prepares to depart, Rosemary ventures to the storage room for fuel. As Luke reclaims his ring, Rosemary listens to an infant wailing and glimpses illumination outdoors. She pursues the sound, stumbling upon a vacant stroller beneath a lamppost. Luke joins her too late. She vanishes as the light fades. Frightened by a Rosemary-shaped shadow, Luke goes back to the truck, single-handedly pushing it. In the tavern cellar, James trembles as he spots a human-like silhouette advancing. Just in time, Luke returns, and they share a heartfelt embrace. James learns of Rosemary's disappearance, but Luke assures him they'll persevere. They connect the generator to the truck, with James behind the wheel and Luke completing the linkage. After several failed attempts, the truck roars to life, but the pub loses power. Inside, shadows chase Luke, however. He manages to break free and links up with James in the vehicle. In a state of alarm, Luke hastily backs up, the hood obscuring his sight. A few blocks away, he halts the truck, asking James to keep the engine running while he secures the hood. James notices the lit church, calls for his mother, and heads toward it, ignoring Luke. Luke, determined to keep the truck, departs from James and accelerates down the road. While en route to Chicago, Luke spots the word croatoan painted on a bridge, prompting him to reassess his thoughts. James steps into the chapel, where darkness creeps in. He discovers a ring of votive lights and a murmuring silhouette. Another shadow attack, however, Luke collides with the church, igniting it. James refuses to leave, believing he's found his mother, but her clothes reveal that she's gone. As the shadows return, James sits in the candle circle, repeating, "I exist." Candles fade to darkness, and morning reveals James in the church, where one candle defies the night. Brianna arrives, asking him to stay. She survives with a solar flashlight, and he shows Luke's charm. They find a horse to leave the city and face shadowy forms of Luke, Paul, and Rosemary at night. Armed with Brianna's flashlight, they fend off the shadows, but an uncertain future awaits.